Stories about altering timelines can sometimes be intriguing, and even disturbing. We've had the Butterfly Effect, Project Almanac, even Frequency, plus a bunch of others. Now, I recently reviewed a Spanish movie called Mirage that dealt with the same concept. Well, Netflix bought the rights to the French series Vortex, and it's now available on the platform. It's like a near-future Butterfly Effect, but it's 6 episodes. So should you binge? In 2025, thanks to new technology, police officers can immerse themselves in crime scenes, reconstructing in virtual reality to help them solve their investigations. When Ludo, a police captain, uses VR to analyze the crime scene of a drowned woman on a beach, someone familiar appears to him. The story starts off in 1998 where we meet Ludo and Melanie. They're a married couple with an infant. And within minutes of the show starting, we learn that Melanie goes out for a run and then has an accident resulting in her death. Now we flash forward to 2025, and Ludo is investigating a death on the same beach where Melanie had died 27 years earlier. Now, because this is the near future, the whole scene is captured via drones and then digitized so that detectives can put on a VR headset and re-examine the scene repeatedly, looking at things they may have missed before. And while Ludo is in the VR, he sees what appears to be Melanie walking along the beach. And then they can converse. Now, for a story device, the narrative has created the idea of this time-space vortex, where the two encounter each other on the same date, just in different years, which allows Ludo to then interact with Melanie. So now there's this race against time for Ludo to try and save Melanie because that date of her death is coming. But like in any good time manipulation story, if something in the past changes, the effects, they ripple through to the future. Now, I absolutely loved the tension that was established through this show. There's a definite air of sadness or melancholy because as the episodes go along, we interact more with Melanie, so it becomes easy to be invested in her. But then there's a moral dilemma that starts. If Ludo does save Melanie, his current life with a new wife and child is all going to disappear. I mean, everything he knows goes away. But his now adult daughter would have her mom back, and he, his wife. Now, the back and forth exchanges and turmoil we see in the characters are both riveting and distressing. I mean, who do you root for? And then, is there any way to come out of this unscathed? It seems like no matter what choice is made, somebody's going to lose something. And the story does an excellent job of balancing both the emotional drama with a growing crime mystery. Ludo and his colleagues are still working on the case of the woman on the beach that started this whole thing out, and the story weaves all sorts of complications into the characters' lives to continuously raise doubt and suspicion on all the players. Now, there was one person I suspected for the mystery, but then dismissed them pretty early on. But then throughout, I had several guesses that mostly turned out to be wrong. And that was so much fun because the show kept me captivated by the mystery, but then engrossed in the characters. And I appreciate the twists that the story introduces. Just like we saw in the Butterfly Effect, when a decision is made, the outcomes are unpredictable. So there was a lot of stress as both Ludo and Melanie would interact and come up with ideas, but then go their separate ways in their own times and not necessarily stick to what they discussed. The frustration that's created by watching this is both aggravating and exciting. And as I'd said, this is 6 episodes that are each about an hour long, so it's going to take a small chunk of time to binge. And I think there are portions that begin to get a little long in the tooth towards the latter half of the show. The information is still interesting, and there's still a large sense of urgency, but there were a few dips along the way that felt like they were beginning to just work against the momentum. This wasn't a constant, and it wasn't something that ruined the experience, but you might find yourself a bit restless in the second half of the show. The special effects in this are pretty great. When Ludo goes into the VR space, it has a large sense of realism, but just enough fakeness to seem like he's in a created environment. And we have the effects that you'd expect, like people from the imagery walking through Ludo, or maybe him being able to walk through objects. But there's the use of color separation and lighting that is mixed within a single scene, and it makes the characters sort of jump off the background, while still being immersed in the visuals. I'm not sure if that totally makes sense, but imagine that the show is trying to make it obvious that a background is fake, but also wanting it to appear completely real. That probably didn't help anything either. Okay, so for the characters, I don't think there's an overwhelming amount of development given on each main player, but I felt like I really knew who they were thanks to the interactions and the conversations that they have. Nobody felt like they were a stranger who was kind of forced into the story. I mean, when somebody's info was obscured, that was for the purposes of the mystery, to keep a lot of the players somewhat vague in certain details while still being able to get a good sense of what they were all about. Now, for me, I really liked that this story has a solid resolution and it feels like it's just a limited series. The story has been fleshed out and told, and while I guess it really could continue, there's no real need, other than to drag out small items unnecessarily. And I also appreciate that this has depth to it. My wife and I were able to have a good conversation about the meanings and the outcomes, as well as all the motivations that we saw at play. And this is going to stick with me a bit thanks to the captivating storytelling, excellent acting, and intelligent writing. So overall, Vortex weaves a time-themed mystery with a heartbreaking character drama, filled with twists and complications, as well as moral dilemmas. The whodunit aspect, mixed with devastating decision consequences, makes for some riveting entertainment. There's a little sex, no nudity, a lot of profanity, and some violence. I give Vortex 4.5 out of 5 couches. So what are you binging right now? Anything you can recommend to me? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this review, please give it a like. Also, don't forget to share and subscribe. I'm Chris. This is Movies and Munchies. Thanks for couching with me.